last year, we've been building out our Agentic AI architecture. And the thing around Agentic AI architecture is really focuses around agents that can learn from their environment, understands their environment, and then act automatically through there. It continuously learns throughout the process to be able to do things. And so that's MADDI for us, is this agentic architecture. And we've built all of these different agents to do particular tasks.
From Aderant, this is Studio A, the podcast that helps legal professionals like you stay on top of trends and solutions that keep your law firm thriving. Welcome to Studio A, powered by Aderant, your podcast for the latest conversations shaping legal tech. I'm your host, Will Ayers. As you know, we always talk to thought leaders that are driving innovation across the legal industry. And I have a guest on the show today who has been here before. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. He is also a New York Knicks fan, an avid fan at that, Mr. Andy Hoyt, Chief Technology Officer at Aderant. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Will. Really excited to talk to you again, as always. And yeah, man, those Knicks, let's go. I'm excited for tonight. It's going to be almost as exciting as what we've been talking about the last 2 days. Really excited about it.
Before we jump into the question, staying with the Knicks.
All right.
I know it's been a long time since your franchise has been in the Eastern Conference Finals.
1999.
1999. How does it feel?
Listen, it feels amazing. I love it. The team is exactly the type of team that I love, which is hardworking, grinded out, and just gets it done. And they're the persona of why I love sports. So I love it. It feels good. They're on a little run, and I'm really hopeful they're going to keep it up against the Pacers tonight and get it done.
Knicks in 6?
Knicks in 6. You heard it here first. No ESPN, no nothing. You heard it here first. Knicks in 6.
Knicks in 6. Okay. That's a great way to start off this interview. So let's talk about the big picture. What excites you the most about Gen AI and some of the advancements that are taking place?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. And we were talking yesterday on stage just around AI and just kind of where it's moving from an overall perspective of hype versus reality. And it's starting to move from these pilot projects into kind of the mainstream of it all. And so it's just moving forward and the reason for that is because it's starting to show the value of what it was promised. And so that was that hype versus reality. Is it really going to do what it says it's going to do? It was like a fun game when you first went into ChatGPT, typed in some stuff, and you got a response and it generated different pieces. But when you tried to apply that to, real world applications, hey, it wasn't ready yet. But what I tell my team all the time is it's going to be there. So you might like a particular tool around coding, for example, 6 months ago, quite frankly, it was good, but we knew it was not great. And so therefore it was like, hey, should I adopt it? I can do it faster potentially. But the view was, no, stick with it because you'll learn how to use it. You learn how to better prompt it. You learn the different ways that the system can help you. And then the technology, because it's constantly evolving and changing, is just getting better. And then all of a sudden it's here and it can do so much. And that's just like on the coding side. And so really that excitement is about the fact that it's starting to be able to do and automate some of the tasks that is really tedious for us, whether that be in engineering, whether it be about the applications that we're talking about here at Momentum and the offerings that we have for our clients. It's really to make the life easier as of law firms and automate those mundane tasks, automate some of the complexities of it. And we see that today. So the excitement is really about, whoa, what's tomorrow going to look like? Yep. And it's awesome.
We use AI in our daily lives all the time for many different things. Where do you see AI making an impact in the legal space?
Yeah, and there's so many things in that legal space, and there's a lot of focus has been around more of the practice of law, right? And so the things like how do I, review documents, summarizations, and some other aspects around, the day in the life of an attorney and the things that they go through in order to serve their clients. And so there's a lot that's happening in that space. And as you know, Will, we're really focused on the business of law. And so helping our law firms run a better business. And so running their firm. And there's a lot of complexities within that entire world, whether it be just the complexities in billing and how do you get a bill out the door and all of the process that goes with that. And that really starts with what are the guidelines that you need to adhere to? Because every client has their own set of guidelines that you need to adhere to. There are biller vendor rules and they change all the time. They're getting more complicated. And so being able to automate all of that entire process from time capture to then making sure it's compliant to then billing and getting paid is at the core of where I think AI will dramatically change the life of a law firm. And really, quite frankly, it's the message of what we've been talking about, one click. I am actually, in the future, in which I think we'll talk through, start to get to zero click, and it's just going to be natural and it's going to be there for them to be able to do. But I think in that space is really where AI is going to make a difference.
Now, you and your team brought MADDI to market a couple of years ago. And at this momentum, 2025, you mentioned askMADDI. What's the difference between MADDI and askMADDI? Because it's very interesting to see you talk on stage about the progression of the MADDI platform in general.
Yeah, that's a great question, Will, because we want to be clear kind of what it is. And so 2 years ago, we introduced MADDI and the capabilities around that. And so MADDI is our underlying AI technology. So it's the brains behind everything that we're doing. So the first job, if you want to call it that way, was for MADDI was when we released Onyx. And the job there was to take all these outside counsel guidelines, extract all of those different rules that are coming in out there that the firm has to adhere to, identify those, and then map them to an existing rule that you can then go ahead and make sure your time entries are compliant against. And so that was the first job of MADDI. It's the underlying tech. So we created the first aspect of our agentic architecture, focusing on OCR, extraction of information out of documents to be able to go serve that piece. And so MADDI was created, and that was the start of it. We added it into the same type of technology and then doing a little bit more, taking it to the next level with our AR automation and other capabilities around that particular piece. AR automation, one of the tasks, especially here in the US, more so than some firms around the globe, is that there's a lot of checks still being used around how firms are getting paid. And so those checks, well, how do I automate it so I can read what that check is? So that was building upon that initial Onyx use case of MADDI to be able to extract information out. Then we added some new technology with it around being able to then do that, find the associated invoice, match that against it, and send it to your AR system. And so it started to do a next use case of some matching. And so more of the generative piece around being able to go and leverage it. And so that brings us to MADDI was just then evolved to some more technology. And so since that time, over the last year, we've been building out our agentic AI architecture. And the thing around agentic AI architecture is really focuses around agents that can learn from their environment, understands their environment, and then act automatically through there. It continuously learns throughout the process to be able to do things. And so that's MADDI for us, is this agentic architecture. And we've built all of these different agents to do particular tasks. So it started with OCR, and what we did with Onyx, it did the AR automation for some OCR and then receipt matching and some financial data. We then added the other capability around natural language query. So how do I then go and through AI and through technology, leverage my data to understand what is happening and even give you insights into what that data is telling you? Today, the process is I'm going to go run a report. Maybe I go into the database, extract information out. I pull that report in. Maybe I'll throw it into Excel. I'll do a million different things on a pivot table, try to understand it, and then deduce what might be happening. Now with what we've added with this natural language query is it's finding that information of your data, extracting it out, and just providing you with the insights instantaneously. And so we called it askMADDI because you can ask MADDI a set. And that was one use case for askMADDI. And quite frankly, it's the most powerful of it because it's an interface. And the way we're distinguishing askMADDI from MADDI is really that interface into the AI system that I can ask questions of and query to. So I can get access and insights into the data. I can ask the system for information. How do I do this? So for example, how do I split a bill? Or I'm having this particular problem trying to get something to work within the environment. How do I do that? Or this error is happening. We can determine, hey, it's an existing, maybe there's a bug that we already know about and there's a fix, or there's a workaround, or you didn't do it right. So it's that interface into the data is where askMADDI comes. So askMADDI is a portion of our overall AI architecture and MADDI solution.
It sounds like it's going from theory to practice, and that's a great segue to my next question. We always talk about AI being a buzzword and the potential of AI. Can you discuss some real world examples where AI improved some of the productivity and efficiency for law firms?
Yeah, I think there's a few use cases I'll kind of touch on. One, I'll just start with what we talked about just a second ago. And I think that's that Onyx side of the world and that's our product name, but it's about how do you make sure that all of the time entries and things that you're going to bill to your client is actually compliant with the rules that you've set forth. And so it's a huge thing because in the past, if we think about the use case that's out there is I go in, I submit my time entry. I've got a narrative and a code associated with it. I submit the bill. It goes out. It gets rejected. It just gets rejected automatically. And we're trying to think of, well, why? And then it's a manual back and forth process. And a lot of times that back and forth process means that things just get moved to the side. And then the law firm actually doesn't get paid for something they probably should have that's out there because it didn't adhere to the guidelines. So when you leverage the technology to automate all of that the extraction of rules, and then at time entry, make sure that when you submit a time entry that it's actually compliant against that rule, it's a game changer. And so that's a real case where we've seen some really good success. We had a firm that did a use case and they had one client that they ran their guidelines through and they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars just on that one client because of all the things it caught that it didn't do before. So huge use case there. And then it gets us into the world of the new, when we start thinking about, well, how do I make it easier for those time entries to be really good? So it might have been compliant against a rule, but were they good in doing what is allowed to be able to do? Was it descriptive enough? Did it match the right code associated with the work that's being done? Because that's one of the things that happens all the time. And so being able to leverage the technology to generate a narrative, to be able to create one that we know will be successful is so powerful. And that's where we actually just announced that capability today. And we've been doing other things inside that timekeeping around passive time. So it's looking at all of the different meetings, Teams calls, other items, Zoom information, extracting that information out and automatically generating that narrative. And we're seeing that a lot of success in firms across the world leveraging that technology.
Are legacy systems slowing you down? Meet the firms that broke free. In this exclusive client roundtable, hear firsthand from Aderant clients as they reveal how Expert Sierra transformed their operations, from migration milestones to measurable wins. If you're ready to accelerate your revenue cycle and unify your front and back office, this is your roadmap to a smarter practice. Head to the webinar's on-demand section at aderant.com and watch why firms are hitching their wagon to Expert Sierra today.
I love talking to you about the science behind AI and the way it impacts law firms around the world. And as a leader that's driving innovation and bringing products to market, what's your approach to building AI that's responsible? Because I saw you on stage today and you talked about automation or people being afraid that they may lose their jobs, and just the responsibility that you're building technology that kind of supercharges capabilities that people already have, and also building technology that they can trust. Can you just talk about your approach to developing responsible AI?
Yeah, responsible AI I think, is one of the most important things when we think about truly widespread adoption of the technology. It's important to be able to do that in a lot of things, especially in some of the early models that are out there, especially some of these large, I'll just say the more public ones that everybody uses day in and day out. There are some of these things that have biases that are associated within that. And so we absolutely are focused on ensuring that none of that comes through within our code. So as we go and leverage some of these base language models, we're adding our data towards it. We're fine tuning the capabilities. We are also doing a lot up front around removing anything that could be around bias or unethical around, the types of responses or other things that are out there. So we're constantly doing that. And the other piece towards that responsible AI is you think about security of all the different things. How do we ensure the data privacy and of all of the different types of information, the client information, the employee type of data information? And so we've got best in breed, security frameworks around our technology that by leveraging some of the cloud technology that's out there in order to ensure that we adhere to all of these things. And we spend a lot of time handling all of that.
Now, you talked about adoption, and there's a lot of layers to that. Also includes law firms integrating AI capabilities into systems that they already have. What's your team's approach to tackling some of those challenges? Because that's a process in itself.
Yeah, adoption is one of the key aspects for it. And in some of the cases, I was saying it a little bit earlier, where you sometimes when you leverage a piece of technology, especially it was early on, hey, I tried to do X, Y, Z and it didn't do it well. Now, at the time, it might have because it didn't do it well. But in reality, a lot of that was also to do with, well, how did you ask the question? And that is a barrier, I think, to a lot, because once you start, if you don't ask the questions properly, therefore you're going to get bad results because there's so much information that it's leveraging against that it gets a little confused, or it answered the question, quite frankly, and it answered it correctly, but didn't answer it correctly to your information. And so some of that is, well, us training our technology to go help that. But then there's just the adoption view, and that is a lot of training, how to leverage AI and what are the best practices behind it. There's a lot within my own team that we do on a day-to-day basis around what is the right prompt in order to get the result that you're looking for. You start to do that, and then you can play with it in other aspects around there. So it's, the education and continuing to leverage, how do you ask AI to do what it wants is a huge piece. And then the other thing for us is just working with our clients on the last topic, really, which is do you have responsible AI? I think that's a barrier. Like, how can I trust that AI is giving me the right answers is one aspect. How can I trust my data is going to be protected, which we just talked about on the previous, though. It's like, well, how do I know I'm going to get the right answer? And that's where we've just spent an enormous amount of time, Will, on just training the data. So, I joke with the product team here at Aderant about how they wanted me to deliver some of this narrative code generation stuff a while ago. We've actually been working on it for a very long time, but we made sure that we knew that we were going to give our clients the right answer. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's, that's what our clients want to know in adoption. And so when we can show them, we can explain that to them, they can test it out and see that the results are accurate. And then explain how we went about the process of the data that we're using, how we're constantly learning is a big piece to it.
It sounds and appears you guys are building smarter technology. And you mentioned training. Can you just kind of provide us with an overview of the steps that are needed to train AI?
Yeah, there's a number of different things. And so you heard me yesterday at the general session portion where we're talking about our product strategy and everything that we're doing, is that there's a large piece towards the data in. So bad data in is bad data out. And so when you give it bad data, the results are gonna go out there. And so for us, the importance of it was data. Now, there's some aspects when we think about some of these, just all of the different AI technologies that are out there, is I'm just gonna throw it a lot of data and see what it does. But some of the data is bad data, or it's uncleansed, or it's old, or it got out of date. So it might have been good at the one time, but then it got out of date 6 months later. And so for us, it's about the data quality of everything that we're doing. And so we've really trained it. And so we've taken, for example, on our AI narrative solution that and generation that we announced this week was where we took all of this data around just narratives that we've seen all be accepted. That so just understanding what all they are, what are the categories that they're in. I mean, millions of different time entries we've looked at around what does that look like. So that's one. The second then comes down to then, we have a bill blast, and bill blast is our, in one regards, e-billing management. So we understand when a bill got approved or rejected, and we can then do through all of that, understand, okay, well, these are the good best practices. These are the bad patterns. So basically for us is we've got this enormous amount of data, and we go through it to understand which is the good ones, analyze all of that. Now we have that good data set. We put it into the model. We constantly doing it, and now the models can now generate the right response. So it's that upfront, the data, overall amount of data and the information that you can do, the quality of that data, and then cleaning that data to ensure its accuracy and never out of date. It's always in compliance is where we're at.
Last year, we launched Stridyn, the AI-driven cloud platform that's powering our cloud applications. Where are we now on that journey? Because I know AI is being integrated across those applications, but just discuss where we are now on that journey.
Yeah, we've made a lot of strides over the last year over the overall technology stack. So I'll start with the user experience. And so when we announced it last year, we talked about the vision, and we had started down the path of just, a couple user experiences that were just a better experience in general. And so we have expanded that further. Now, everything that we do has that same look and feel. We've added Bill Blast and that UI into this, and it's a modern look and feel. You work where you want, how you want, when you want, because of the application and the device in itself. iTimekeep has adopted that as well, where we move that to it, whether it be the desktop and the mobile application. We announced the new Cloud GL, the new Cloud AR, these capabilities all on this integrated user experience. And so now, as you think about a day in the life, whether you're an attorney, a finance person, wherever role in there, all of your applications start to move to the same experience, and it's easy to integrate to all of that. So that's out there. We have reusable code that allows us to be able to do that. There's other pieces behind it as well when I think about the overall data side. So we've got a standardized data lake that allows us for that quality of the AI and things that we're talking about over there to do it. We've got expert data moved in. We've got some Bill Blast data in. So we're taking all of our products data, putting it in there. We've done that. It's now available. And that's where then the AI comes in. It uses that platform and UX experience, the data layer and all of that. We've built out a number of APIs and common services, added our AI architecture as part of the platform as well, that then we can now do AI across all of that data and get the insights. And that's where askMADDI comes in around getting the insights against that data. So it's a huge piece. We've evolved it and have made really good strides in the last year.
I know that the needs of law firms are changing all the time. So many times when you build technology, there may be some shifts in that roadmap. What's your approach to balancing that, driving innovation, but also making sure that it's flexible enough to meet the needs of those clients?
Yeah, it's always a balance. I think there's a lot of software companies and applications out there that will paint a picture and just say, hey, here's this new shiny toy. And that's all great. And that shiny toy might be awesome. But if there's no pathway to be able to get there is one aspect. And that's a lot of times what we see. There's how do I get from where I am today to that future state? And it's necessarily a big bang is a very hard thing, especially in law firms. And so building a journey for folks to be able to go or map out how they get from point A to point Z is an important step. And a lot of times other applications or other software doesn't do that. I see that all the time in the cloud software I use. And it's like, I can't use that. I'm here. How do I do that? The migration tools aren't there. So for us, it's about going ahead and making sure we also deliver. So we have that shiny object. It's good. And that's the things that we're doing. But we've also been building the pathway to how they get there as part of our, how do I go from expert to these new cloud capabilities? And we've built a pathway so they can take advantage of all of that. And so for us, that investment is we're going to invest a lot. So it's been great. Chris has given me a lot of money to go ahead and invest into the technology. So, we've invested in the new, but we've invested in keeping current on the existing things, adding capabilities to expert so that when our clients are on the journey towards the newer applications and the future and all of the AI things that we're doing, they can take advantage of it. So we're investing heavily in both, because if you just invest in the existing, you'll never get to the new. If you just do the new, no one can adopt it because it's too hard to get there. And so for us, it's that balance of doing both, but more importantly, bringing them on that journey of the software together. So I've got teams investing in all of that technology, all of that capability to really help our clients move towards the future.
Well, Andy, it's truly been an honor and a pleasure to have you back on the show. And I know you'll be back on again. Hopefully when you come back, you'll have an NBA championship.
Let's do it
on your resume.
Listen, be the most excited about it. Even if it doesn't happen, which it will, they'll get it. I'll still come back and join you.
Cool.
I love talking to you, Will.
Sounds good. Let's do it again.
All right. Appreciate you.
That was Andy Hoyt, Chief Technology Officer at Aderant. They're doing some incredible things, and no doubt about it, he will be back to continue the conversation about the innovative roadmap that Aderant is taking. Thanks for listening to Studio A. For more from this episode, visit Aderant.com. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat, and we'll see you next time in Studio A.